Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's J-Man. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm J-Man.
This is Steiny.
Hello.
Didn't tell you we were going to discuss this. I have been sitting on it for at least a month and a half. I was very interested when Donald Trump's taxes finally came out.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And for somebody who would have been living under a rock, it took years and years to get his taxes. First presidential candidate to not offer him since 1976, and it was Gerald Ford.
Right.
And it's funny when you look at what they showed, and it was from the years of 2015 to 2020, so 6 years. And for a guy that ran on a platform that he's so business savvy, and he's got all this money, I'm so good at everything I do, I've closed hundreds of deals, he lost a shit ton of money in all of those years.
And that's what he always claims every year. I don't understand how he could always be consistently losing money and still be a savvy businessman. Because that's how he claims he never has to pay taxes, right? Is he always loses money?
And I assumed as much would be found when they finally got this open. And there's the whole, political screw job angle he's trying to play, like the Democrats were just trying to make him look bad. And now the GOP's like, oh, turnabout's fair play. That's not why this story interests me.
Okay.
Because if you look at the year 2020, a majority of his business holdings are in what industry? Do you know?
Well, I'm assuming not real estate, or I would have hotels, entertainment?
Hospitality. And what happened in the early part of 2020?
Oh, everything tanked. Yeah, nobody could go anywhere. Nobody was going anywhere. Yeah.
Right. So everything shut down, and his businesses were hemorrhaging money because he wasn't making any. And I seem to remember him having a very stern desire to open everything back up.
Yeah, I think he was pretty glad when Florida basically said they were going to open everything up and everything was open for business, type thing, because, his resort's down there.
Yeah, so for everybody that talked about how well he handled the pandemic and he wanted to get Americans back to work and keep the country open and running, the reality of it is, most likely, he only wanted it back open so his businesses could continue to make money that they were losing. It was all to save his own skin.
I think that's a big part of it. I don't disagree at all. I think he thinks of himself first and foremost. But I think also the political fallout is part of the reason why, too, he wanted everything opened up, because it became a very staunch right-wing thing to deny the pandemic, to deny vaccinations, and to get back to work, and you can't tell me what to do, blah, blah, blah. So, I think there was a big political angle, but I think you're right. Absolutely, first and foremost, it was all about him.
So, and I hate to just bring up Tim out of the blue, because he's not on the show anymore, and we don't talk anymore, and his fucking Trump boner is a part of it. And if that makes me seem like a piece of shit, I don't fucking care. Because supporting the Donald is supporting a madman, and I just can't have any respect for anybody that does so. Sorry, not sorry. I mean, all the schemes over the years, the Russian collusion worries, the classified document shit, putting his crooked-ass kids into his cabinet unqualified, and of course, his irresponsible election fraud rhetoric that inspired the January 6th incident, both directly and indirectly. I mean, the guy just has no fucking shame, and he only wants what he wants, fuck everybody else. Like, not to mention the way that he tries to buddy up to North Korea's Kim Jong-un by offering him a ride on Air Force One. He's butt buddies with Vladimir Putin and just admires the shit out of the way that he makes his dissenters basically disappear off the face of the planet somehow, like that's totally okay. The guy basically wants to be like a king. He admires other dictators. He wants to be a dictator. He doesn't want to lead over a democratic nation. He doesn't give a fuck about you, Joe Blow, average citizen.
Right.
Trump showed his true colors so many times. He lied about so many things. He's just been a fucking scumbag for so long that supporting him, to me, feels un-American. You're supposed to be the highest office, the utmost level of integrity and respectability, and the fucking guy is only ever out for himself. He goes on and trounces the name, like, egregiously, like, hyperbolically, of anyone who chastises or criticizes him because his ego is so goddamn fragile. They talked about him obsessively watching CNN and other news outlets to see what trash they were putting out about him.
On a daily basis, his skin was so thin, he would be reacting in real time to what was commented about him in the morning. You know what I mean? Yeah.
He'd go nuts on Twitter, and you'd have to wonder if this is going to be the start of some sort of international incident because the guy can't keep his fucking mouth shut and take a breather. He just goes off all emotional.
It's like a high school girl.
He really is. He's like a fucking 14-year-old girl with an inferiority complex who's trying to overcompensate. But instead of being a 14-year-old girl, he's a 70-some-year-old grown man, major business mogul. I'm air quoting that last part. And he's a fucking megalomaniac.
Yeah, with his finger and access to the codes, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
As if I haven't said enough, I don't get how anybody at this point could still be on the Trump train when we have been waiting and waiting and waiting for any proof of election fraud and all the lawsuits and all the hullabaloo. It didn't fucking materialize because it does not exist. And frankly, if they did pull a screw job and they gave it to Biden over him, I don't fucking care, because the country's in better hands with Dementia Joe than it is with fucking Crybaby Orange Emperor.
Yeah, I could only imagine what 4 years of him... I mean, the 4 years he was in office felt exhaustive, and then you throw COVID and all that on the back end of it, too. I mean, it just seemed like it was so long, and to have that possibility that he could get elected, or at least he's going to be the Republican nominee in 2024, is scary, you know?
Well, it's funny because in the last week, I go for a walk every day on my lunch break at work, weather permitting, and there's a house. They have a pool, and they have a flagpole in their backyard. The flagpole is inside of a 6-foot-tall wrought iron fence. And on that flagpole is both an American flag and a Trump 2024 flag.
Oh.
The other day, it was hanging by a single eyelet, like the top one, ripped or whatever.
Sure.
And then today it was gone.
Oh, so even Mother Nature was offended, or?
I don't know. I mean, I had frostbite on my fingers when I saw it, but I didn't care. At the moment I said, "Ha ha, your fucking flag's gone, dicks."
I took a trip to Iowa this last weekend, and while driving down there, you know, you see some stickers, bumper stickers, but you don't see as many as you used to, right? It used to be like that was Trump country. You used to see every, you know, Trump bumper stickers on everything, and now you only see them very rarely on the way down there. But even so, I passive aggressively would give them the middle finger, like on the inside of my door, as I was
Just
going
below
by.
the window line,
Exactly.
so they can't see you.
Yep. I'm not, you know, overtly flicking them off, but I am saying F them for their Trump views, you know.
And I used to dig on Tim for hating on the Democrats so much, because anything that you would rip on the Republicans, he's like, but the Democrats this, but the Democrats... There's a lot of whataboutism.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to openly say this. I respect the shit out of Mitt Romney. I liked Rick Perry and his idea that congressmen and senators should only do their job part of the year and then go back to having real jobs. There are people in that party that have a solid head on their shoulders. I like that the right and conservatives like traditional family values, which in my mind is like keeping the family intact. I, on the other hand, have a very strong opinion against all of their anti-abortion stances.
Right.
And they're trying to take away teenage girls' right to get birth control now is one of their next aims, it sounds like.
Isn't it? Yeah. Well,
But going back, because I'm getting a little bit muddy in the water here, back to the tax thing. Now that we know all that, it's just another fucking piece of the jigsaw puzzle. How does anybody trust him at this point, knowing, so yeah, he wanted the country to be open, but it was more to be a feather in his cap, and in reality, behind the scenes, this fucking jagaloon really only wanted his businesses to succeed. It was all about his money and him getting his due.
yeah.
What a fucker.
Did you, well, to expound on this, I don't know if you've heard some of the most recent news. The day after the election that he lost, Jared Kushner set up, I believe, a new company, right? That basically has a lot of money and ties with the Saudis.
God damn it.
Trump has I think it's like a $4 billion contract with the Saudis to build like a resort over there. They are now doing all of their live golf tournaments at various golf courses of his throughout the world. So
Really?
yeah, no, I mean, it's all... The guy is going to tout himself as a savvy businessman, and all he did was just use his power and position to enrich himself. I mean, that's all it was. I mean, like a lot of presidents before him. I'm not going to pull the wool over my eyes and claim that there weren't presidents before on both sides of the aisle that did very similar things. It's just in this day and age where there's so much transparency, so many people are putting you under the microscope, it's hard to get away with some of this stuff. And in some ways, they're brazen about it. I think Trump's group is just dumb. I think they haven't really thought through a lot of the stuff. They never really thought through political strategy. They actually abhorred people that actually had a solid, sound political mind and put them on their team, somebody that could have prevented some of the political fallout that they constantly got themselves into time and time and time again. And you're right, when the message has been so convoluted over the years, has been so backwards in many ways, how do you trust a guy like that? And how do you trust the Republican Party when, you're right, when there's core values like abortion, gay rights, things like that we should continue to move on from, but yet we're stuck in the past. We're constantly going back to these issues and relitigating them all the time. And
it's faith-based, and that's the problem, is that you're not separating church from state. But in reality, what Obama did by legalizing gay marriage, that was more of a human right, an American issue. It wasn't a Democratic issue.
No, there were people on both sides of the aisle that were gay and wanted to marry, or had their rights suppressed for so many years. But it was the political, strong arm of the religious right that really suppressed it for so long.
And he's one of those, card-carrying Jesus lovers. Or so he claims. I would not be shocked to find that all of his fucking God this, and the few times you hear him talk about religion, like that whole move these protesters so I can take a photo op of the Bible bullshit, it's all self-supportive. It's only for his own gain. I don't foresee him as a man that sits down and reads the Bible and pores over the meaning of Scripture and introspectively thinks about his relationship to his faith in the grand scheme of all mankind with the power that he had. He probably doesn't sit down and say the rosary.
Guaranteed he doesn't, right? Anybody who just knows him, has paid attention, would know that, he's not the type of guy to do that. But yet he would still beam and take photos when the evangelicals will come and lay hands on him all in a group prayer and all this other crap. You know what I mean? He just absorbs it because it's just another photo op for him.
You dick!
So you've noticed I've gone away from a lot of hard political issues on the show because it's just like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah, especially over the last 4 or 5 years.
It's easy to rip on the right because it seems like they want to just save all the money from the poor people,
But the left
wants to fucking hammer us over the head with all this equity and inclusion bullshit.
Right.
And it's just exhausting being forced to play along with all of this or be considered transphobic, homophobic, all the fucking isms they throw at you. It's just like, I don't want to do this anymore, you fucks. That's why I'm hoping that this new centrist, the Forward Party, I believe, that Andrew Yang has joined.
Oh, yeah. He was pretty popular during the last election cycle, for a while.
They're going to try to have a number of levels of offices where they get their people into them to start building a foothold as a legitimate third party.
Yep,
and that's what we should be doing, because we're losing a lot of fucking foothold. It feels like nobody takes us seriously anymore. China's like, fuck you. We're going to fly spy balloons over you. Say they're weather balloons that went off course. And when you call us to talk about it, we're not going to pick up the phone. Suck a bag of dicks. By the way, we're going to raise the prices on all the stuff you need because you were too stupid to think long game and build some sort of manufacturing infrastructure in Mexico as opposed to the opposite side of the goddamn globe 30 years ago.
A lot of people forget about Trump and all of his tariff wars with China. Remember, before the pandemic, he was getting his rocks off, claiming that he was making China pay, and no, they weren't. It was just us paying more here on our end.
The one thing that I regret about Trump not winning a second term, being that I'm a black man, is that he's done more for black Americans than any other president ever. I'm glad you instantly got the humor in that statement, that I'm a 40-year-old white, suburban, middle-class Midwesterner And it's like, dude, Abraham Lincoln much? Come on, fuck you.
That
Really?
that was one of those lines whenever I would hear him say it, like whenever they would replay it, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Like, does anybody believe that this guy is not just a racist fat old white man? Like, underneath it all. I don't care if he's from New York and New York's, really integrated. He's still a racist old fat white guy.
Well, when I was with the Beast, she has an aunt who is black because her grandmother had a little dalliance with a man of color. So her aunt was talking about, oh, you guys should move down to South Carolina and then he can be a prison guard down there. I'm like, no, I don't think a bunch of big, muscular, sweaty black guys in that part of the country want to see a skinny white dude from Minnesota walking around telling them what to do with this haircut. Yeah. And then the Beast is like, that's racist that you said that. Why did it have to be black dudes? I'm like, it's the fucking South. Look at the goddamn incarceration numbers down there, and also look at the saturation of people of color living in those areas, like right. Charlotte especially.
And it's not racist to point out those demographic differences. I mean, we'll be honest, Minnesota for a long time has not been real well integrated, obviously. Over the last few years have proven that. So we are...
Not until that Tom Hanks movie came out where that guy's like, look at me, I am the captain now. And then all the Somali people moved here.
Yeah. I think some of them were here before that.
A few. But my point here is that I'm like, you can't call me racist. I voted for Obama.
Yeah.
And she's like, really? So why I bring that up is because Trump saying he's not racist is because he employs a number of people of color. Like right. In the movie The Help. And they fucking work in his hotels and shit. The guy's a fucking scumbag. And I'm not going to keep giving his name any gusto. I'm just going to let it go. He's proven his colors. I don't think he's going to win. I just had to get this out there because every now and then I get text messages from a few friends that want to talk shop on politics that are like, hey, you haven't brought up this. You haven't talked about that. Are you going to discuss this? I'm like,
But the thing is unfortunately about politics nowadays, you can talk about one thing and then in a week's time something else has come up and there's a completely different angle, right? All of a sudden we're talking about Biden and his documents at his house after Trump's documents, and then you got Pence with his documents, and now we're sitting here making a big stupid deal about these classified documents that should not have gone home. But at the same point in time, who the F cares? Like, now we're just making nothing burgers again. So really,
well, yes and no, because the Biden thing, they were like, aha, you too.
Right.
It's like, not so fast. They found him and they're like, oh, fucking take these, please.
Right. Get them off our hands.
Not saying, I don't have them. They're not going to answer the phone now.
No, I agree. And Trump's initial thing and him fighting it for the longest time and then having to have the FBI raid him and all this stuff, it almost seemed like he planned that. Like, he wanted them to raid him so he could further act like the victim of the DOJ or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, almost like it was done on purpose.
I had not thought of it that way, but yeah, that does seem right within his brand.
Yeah, exactly. And point the finger at the other side again. Look at what they're doing to me. Look at how they're persecuting me. Because really, that's his only effing play anymore. Have you noticed that? That's all he really has, is look at how maligned I am. Look at how falsely accused I've been. And I'm getting railroaded here. I won the election. I'm getting railroaded there,
Have you ever seen the movie This Boy's Life?
I
with
did.
DiCaprio and De Niro.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. They were pretty young.
Okay, so Dwight was the stepdad.
Yeah. Played
by De Niro. And at the end of the movie, all of his abusive behavior, and basically what would equate to today being called commando parenting, he was just a very selfish, everything was about him, underlyingly, everything had to be done his way.
Yep.
So once DiCaprio's character and his mom leave Dwight, there's a scene where he's standing there on the steps of their house like, what about me? What about me? That's Trump right now.
Yeah.
In my mind, when you say that, is he's fucking Dwight from This Boy's Life.
Yeah. And like you said, it goes back to that whataboutism, all that other stuff. Well, what about this? What about this? It all it ever does is distract from the actual real topic, the real point that you're trying to make. When anybody goes, what about, they don't have a good response for
it's
what
a deflection.
You just pointed out. It's complete deflection. And eventually,
it's why you are sitting in this chair now, not the other person that used to occupy it, because I got sick of all the fucking whataboutism and trying to like break it down. Like, I'm not trying to shit on your beliefs, you motherfucker. I'm trying to open your eyes to these things that you are being willfully ignorant that they exist. Stop it. It doesn't make you wrong or a bad person if you voted for the guy and he turned out to be a turd. It wouldn't be the first fucking time it happened to somebody. Knock it off.
Yeah. And I used to have, and I say used to because I don't talk to this gentleman much anymore, but years ago I had a friend who was a pretty staunch Republican, and we used to always joke about how whenever the election cycle came up, we'd vote to cancel the other one's vote out. I mean, pretty much that's how it went, right? Like, I'm going to vote to cancel your vote out and vice versa. It was kind of fun. And he was great because he was one of those people that actually could have intelligent debates about politics. And not a lot of people seem to do that anymore. It's so emotional. It's so much feeling involved on both sides. And it's
about being right, not about finding common ground.
Or what it feels right to them. You know what I mean? It's not even what's actually right. It's about what feels right to them. Because you got all this alternative truth now and alternative reality.
Yeah, that's a byproduct of the My Truth movement where everybody has their truth and that's what they believe and no one can tell them they're wrong.
I don't understand what happens when reality gets in the way of your truth, because you're going to be up for a hard awakening and a rude fall. I mean, that's all it is. I mean,
they're either speechless or they go off the fucking rails defensively.
And need medication or a safe space. And yeah. Which I think we have enough of in this society. But
very
that's
much
a
so.
different argument.
And that actually ties into the next episode, ironically.
Oh, sweet.
Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm J-Man.
This is Steiny.
And that's the end.